So in this particular video, just for the next couple minutes, I'm going to give you some principles and ideas on how to do your own training, just to get you starting to move right. And then in later videos, we'll talk about actually hitting someone with a stick in ways that make it harder for them to hit you with a stick. This is, of course, primarily geared towards SCA heavies fighting, but these movement principles that I'm going to be talking about, they can apply to any sort of martial arts, HEMA, or also just keeping yourself safe for self-defense, street defense, whatever the case is. But these are the principles of movement that everything else is built on. And so obviously some techniques are going to be geared towards certain environments and certain opponents. All right, so the first thing you want to be aware of is where the power for a swing or a strike is going to come from. Now, if you talk to a lot of people, especially people with have a good boxing background, it's by pushing off the ground. So the back foot, if you're doing a right cross, just comes in and you're pushing from the ground up through your hip, and it's this torque coming through with your fist. And to be fair, boxers are one of the, if not the hardest punching martial arts or sports in the world. The problem is you have to have good ground to do that in, which means if your foot slips, if you're on rocky terrain, if you're on any sort of uneven ground, your effectiveness on pushing off is going to be lowered. And not only that, but if you push off of the ground, you're kind of anchored and you're committing everything to this punch. And if that punch misses, well, you've just thrown a bunch of weight at the opposite guy. And if he's as good or better than you are, if he can slip that punch, now he has a solid couple seconds, which in a fight is not going to be anywhere short of what he needs, but he's going to be able to counter you pretty well. So how I've been taught for a variety of styles. I've been taught to do not pushing off, but turning the hips. So I'm going to keep my shoulders and my hips in a square. They're going to kind of be in the same alignment. I'm not going to twist. See, now if I had a bar across my shoulders and another bar across my hips, they'd be crossing at this point. Here, they're parallel. So I try to keep them moving in the same speed and the same orientation there. So whether it is boxing one way or another, my hip and my shoulders kind of move the same way. I'm not twisting, because twisting, that's going to add more tension to me. It's going to put more strain on my musculoskeletal system. And if you are big and strong, then maybe you'll be able to get away with it. But the thing is, you're eating up some of your power and some of your energy because you're adding tension that doesn't need to be there. So with a stick, especially with a heavy stick, one of the first drills you can do is just, I've heard it called a figure eight, or it's an X drill or anything like that. All you're doing is swinging it back and forth, swinging it down and back here. Now I'm going to exaggerate it so you can see how my hips are moving. So if it comes from the right going to the left, it's my left hip that goes back. Remember, I'm turning. I'm not pushing off of anything. I'm just turning. So left hip goes back, and I let the momentum of the sword, all this weight down here, now it's fairly light, but there's still some weight. I let all this weight carry it up, and so I'm already chambered for my right hip to go back, and there it goes. So just left hip goes back, right hip, left hip, right hip, left hip, right hip. And I'm trying to aim into the side of the person's head, so that even if it hits a little bit of an angle, kind of skims down, it gets caught right into their shoulder and their neck. There. So that's one and then two. And you can do this with 1 foot forward or another one. Now you notice I have my hand up here, and it's not doing anything at the moment. But I want to have it up here so that I get used to either holding a shield or having it chambered, maybe a second weapon that comes out. But I don't want it just kind of flopping down useless. Because if I'm in a fight, I want this hand to be doing something, or I want it completely out of the way. That's why you see a lot of saber fencers and everything. Saber fencers, broadsword fighters, everything. They either have the hand behind them, so it's out of the way of the work they're doing in front, or it could be possibly grabbing a hold of a musket or a dagger or something like that in the back, and it's going to come in later for other techniques. So, but for the moment, just work with the momentum. Remember, it starts with your left hip back, you let the momentum go, and then it comes back again with your right hip. Now, I won't be able to do this if I'm tense. If my shoulders, arms, and hands and everything are very tense with this, I'm not going to be able to ride this momentum or manage the energy of the sword coming through. All right? Your hand and arm, it's not adding any power. I know it feels nice to just have a big, strong grip, big, tight grip, and just come in on there, but you're gonna eat up a lot of your energy. Because remember, you might have the physical prowess, you might be strong enough and good enough to defeat the guy in front of you, but if you're in a melee situation, you're in a battlefield, thing like that, you not only have to do with the guy in front of you, but he's got buddies. And so you might end up doing 5 fights or 10 fights or 100 fights before you get to rest. So the more efficiently you can work, effective means you hit the guy, congratulations, but you could have spent a lot of time and energy up dealing with that one guy. Efficient means you dealt with the problem, the opponent in front of you, the enemy, you dealt with the problem with the least amount of resources spent as possible. And the resources, of course, are your strength, your speed, how much gas you have in the tank, all of the above. So, make sure you're nice and loose up through here. You still have your structure between your hips and your shoulders. So, nice and easy. 1, and then later on, you can do different motions. But you'll see, it's still these 4 points moving in concert. Now, word about stepping and everything like that. Stepping is a means of closing distance. And in certain cases, adding power because you're adding your body weight, your momentum to the hit.